When I'm not somehow convincing myself that practicing my axe toss is somehow considered research for the Celtic album I'm making, I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Another great QA, I started doing gigs about 1.5 years into my playing, basically as soon as I had an hour's worth of material. People loved it, so that was good. Question for next time, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Jimmy Page signature Telecaster? Oh, the Jimmy Page signature Telecaster, as Fender puts it, among music's most iconic guitars, that not, 50% of the people didn't even know he really played. I don't know, whatever, it's cool. I personally think Jimmy Page more of a Les Paul player. That could just be me. I don't know. Speaking of signature guitars, I do want to shout out my guy Tim for emailing me a picture of this new custom shop Telecaster that they're making, which looks somehow very strangely familiar to me, but I don't know. Signature Tellys, they're pretty cool. Super spooky, haha. Hey, question. So how many songs do you typically prepare for a gig? Great question as far as just how many songs you should know. So, the gigs I usually play are like 3-hour sets, and I kind of take pride in not repeating songs. Again, I think you should start off with just learning 20, because if you can do 20 and drag them out, you can do different sets and kind of play, a decent amount of gigs and stuff like that. Especially if you're jamming with other musicians. The great thing about jam sessions is you can really milk these songs for as long as they go. Now I'm usually playing with the singer or singing myself, so you kind of want to just keep it going and kind of just go through a lot of stuff. So we typically are able to do 80 songs, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, a lot of the songs that we do are pretty repetitive and they're just 4 chords, and it's really just kind of just getting the hang of it. So even though a lot of people might think that just knowing 80 songs off the top of your head is daunting, it's one of those things that once you start just to see the patterns, it's really just pattern recognition, and then just kind of being able to remember what things sound like, and then just getting the tempo right, and the playing just kind of just automatically takes over, and you get a feel for where the changes come from. So yeah, we do 80 to 100 songs, and then we'll do live requests too, where I can just read a chord chart or something, and then just fight my way through it. But yeah, I would say just start off with 20, because even if doing cover songs or whatever at a gig isn't your thing, I think it's just such an important lesson in learning structure to help with your own songwriting, and to kind of just help with your timing, because just being able to memorize and in your mind's eye see how these progressions work is only going to make you a better musician, and it's just great for just practicing your musicianship in general. So I would say start with 20, get 20 down. If you have to repeat them, that's fine, no worries. Try to play them a little bit differently, improvise, use different chord voicings for them is something that I always try to challenge myself to do. But generally we do we have 80 ready, we might play 60, I would say. Sean, as a guitarist and Hans de Foucault spokesman emeritus, what are your thoughts on Pat Metheny's skills, music, and coiffure? I don't know if I said that last word right, but Metheny's great. I'm not really into that genre so much. I do like the album that he did with Brad Meldau, who I think he's a piano player, if you don't know, who has some really cool kind of arrangements and stuff. So I don't listen to a lot of them, but obviously the man's an absolute beast, and the hair is just legendary, which kind of transitions into, I guess if you want to call it, the smooth jazz realm. I love the stuff that Corey Wong, famously known as the Wolfpack guitarist, is doing, where he's just really taking smooth jazz by the balls with the help of Dave Koz. So definitely check out Corey Wong if you don't know who he is, because he's also growing a legendary mustache to kind of get in the game with the really, the mustaches of smooth jazz and Metheny's hair have really kind of paved the way for others. Seriously, Sean, you're trying to school Andreas? Please don't bark out chord names to Colleen. You look silly. Andreas Colleen can sing the phone book and make people weep tears of joy. When Andreas plays guitar, it's lyrical and melodic. When you play guitar, it's usually satirical and chaotic. Satirical and chaotic is actually probably one of the better compliments I could get on my playing, because it totally is proof that my personal life has bled into my guitar playing, and it has truly become an extension of who I am as a man. What is the difference between a practice amp and a gig amp? As I start to think about looking for a gig, do I need to buy the latter, or do bars, etc. usually have one there? So I did a review on the Fender Mustang 100, which I consider a practice amp. A lot of people are like 100 watts, that's a gigging amp. Especially for solid state amps, it's not really about the wattage. Like a 30 watt tube amp is gonna be so much louder than a 100 watt solid state amp. Again, you can crank stuff, but the solid state amps are great. When it comes to what I consider a practice amp, I kind of look more at like features and stuff. I love tube amps, I'm all for tube amps, but I do think that the solid state amps offer just kind of a wider array of what you can do. You have a lot of effects built in. If learning effects are something that you want to kind of incorporate into your own playing, when it comes to practicing, I'm not super concerned with like the tone and the sound of it. I really like the clean sounds on that Fender Mustang. A lot of people don't like some of the effects, which I can totally understand why. But really when it comes to practicing, it's got a very reliable built-in tuner. The foot switch is awesome, so looping I think is like an essential thing that you're looking for in a practice amp, even if it's just using an external looper pedal, because again, looping things and playing over them is like some of the best practice you can get because you're working on your timing, your scales, chords, whatever. So having a headphone jack I think is another important thing for a practice amp. Again, that just kind of depends on your living situation, and you know, with tube amps you can't really have like a headphone jack. So again, I always prefer the sound of a tube amp, but when it comes to what a practice amp is, I really think about more of the features that it has than, you know, just kind of like the ease of use than even just like the wattage. Now, as far as like playing gigs and stuff like that, generally, in my experience, the venue doesn't have anything for you to use. Some venues will have like built-in sound systems. I really, for all the gigs that I play, I just bring my own sound system anyway. Sometimes you can kind of like plug into like their house speakers and stuff like that, but again, like a 100 watt solid state amp you can still totally gig with, because a lot of the stuff is going to be fed through a PA depending on what you end up bringing anyway. So again, most of my stuff is acoustic guitar gig-wise, where you can just plug it right into the mixing board, which sounds great through that Bose system. But I've seen a lot of good groups play decently sized gigs with really small amps that a lot of people would consider to be practice amps or bedroom amps. So again, to me it just comes down to the features. Okay, so in short, I used to play a lot of places in high school, coffee shops, parks, and I was never afraid to perform a song I wrote or go up and go for it. Now that I'm older by 6 years, I still play and I'm better vocally and musically, but something happened to my confidence. I find myself being afraid of the idea of playing in front of people for a show. I'm sure I could do it, but anxiety would push through the roof. I invested in my gig gear and I want to perform the songs I love, but it feels like a big hurdle. Any ideas of a plan of attack? Also, not so short story. In the end, my bad. Yeah, this is something I feel like a lot of adults deal with, because when you're younger, it seems like you're less afraid to suck at something, and adults have, you know, a lot of issues kind of dealing with something that maybe they're not super confident in. I actually was the exact opposite. I think when I was younger, I would have been terrified to play a show or something, and now it's just like, whatever, I'm just fine. Just I'll go up and try anything at this point. I don't really care. All that just comes from confidence, and confidence is built from just going out and doing it. So there's really no advice other than just go to open mic night, go to something where the stakes are low, because again, the stakes are always low. If you screw up and you're awful, nobody cares. I cannot stress that enough, how much nobody cares. I say it all the time. Nobody cares. Just do it. Just do you, man. It's gonna be fine. Make it happen. For listening homework, I'm gonna link you to some new stuff by awesome artist. I think he goes by the name MKG. Not really sure. This is kind of a good one for me, showing my research and pronunciating things. But check that out. Also, too, make sure you get in on this contest, because the contest deadline, November 11th, is fast approaching. I'm going to Vegas this weekend, so I'm probably actually not going to make the final judgment. If it's like November 14th or 15th, that's fine. You'll still be eligible for the contest. So keep doing that stuff. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.